Welcome to the webinar, Revolutionizing the IEP Process with AI. See the Let's Go Learn AI Assistant in Action, writing PLAAFPs and empowering teachers. This webinar is sponsored by Let's Go Learn, one of CEC's best partners. Let's Go Learn provides personalized, data-driven assessments and instructional solutions that empower educators to support student growth. With tools designed to simplify the IEP process and address learning gaps, Let's Go Learn helps schools create targeted learning plans that meet the individual needs of every student. Our presenter today is Richard Capone, the founder and CEO of Let's Go Learn. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Richard to get our session started. Thanks for
Great.
joining us.
Thanks. And also, are the survey results showing as well?
They should. You might not be able to see it because you're sharing your screen. I can tell you that we have, it looks like about 34 people are administrators, 50 of them are teachers, 14 in the early childhood, some general education teachers with us too, paraeducators, related service. We really have everybody here today. So everybody is here with us.
Okay, great. And what about the other questions? Are some of those coming up or?
Not yet. I'll do that
Okay.
one when you pull that up on the slide, and I'll share those results with you as well since
Okay,
you can't
great.
see them. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm real excited today. So today we are covering some foundational stuff as well, because I think it's such a big topic. And I know, generally speaking, when we have webinars, everyone's skill and knowledge is very diverse, right? Some people are just getting into AI. Some people are really maybe experts. Now, we do have something really nice too. A couple of our engineers are going to jump on the very end in the Q&A. So our engineers, they're working with it. They're working with the API version of ChatGPT. We've developed different agents. And so if you have some technical questions, you can say that for the very end as well. And it should be interesting. All right. So I'm looking at some of the polls here. It looks like, educational background, what your personal use. Yeah, it's all different levels. Some people are very beginning. Some people are more advanced. So that's great. I just sort of wanted to make sure I saw that so that I can gauge how we're doing. Okay. Yeah, and also it's varied in terms of usage of AI at your organization. Um, high, low, everything across the gamut. Interesting. Okay, good. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to show you the agenda. So the agenda today is we're going to go over some basic terms, AI terms. I think it's important to have the common vocabulary. You will get the slides as well, which is really nice because if you want to share this with your own team members, it's good to make sure that everyone is speaking the same language. Then I'll talk about some 5 initial steps to get started. I want you guys to be able to have actionable items so that way you know, hey, what do I do? I also have a resource that's fantastic for getting your entire organization ready. So it has like documents that are like board documents, policy documents, all sorts of great stuff. So that's something you can copy. Then we'll talk about a framework for how to look at AI in special education. And I think that's really important to know, how do I evaluate it? And then finally, we're going to show what we have, AI assistant in action. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the different progressions of AI tools, and then we'll have Q&A. All right. So let me go ahead. Start off with the AI basics. Now, if you are watching a recording, you could jump ahead about 10 minutes and you could jump into some more advanced stuff. But I am gonna cover some of the basics here. So first of all, the genie is out of the lamp. Your teachers are using AI, your students are using it. Someone is going to do something foolish. And containment isn't possible. When something is free, and this is what really resonated with me, when something is free, you can't stop it, right? AI is free. And it's everyone could use it. There may be some limits to how often you could use it, but it's getting cheaper and cheaper. So the cost is getting driven down by competition. So you have to have a policy on it, right? You can't say, let's just not let anyone do it, because they're using it. Even if you tell them they can't do it, they're going to use it. Right. All right, so first of all, what is AI? So it's really whenever a computer system is performing something that requires human intelligence, that's what we call AI. Now, there's 3 different types I want to make sure we examine. First is artificial narrow intelligence. That's called weak AI. That's what we're used to. Facial recognition on our phones, autonomous driving, fraud detection. I notice fraud detection is so good on my credit card now. They ping me right away when there's something they're worried about. That's all AI, right? So that's very, very limited set of constraints. That's been rolled out for the past 10 years and we're not even aware of it, right? Artificial general intelligence is called strong AI and it's not here yet. That's AI that would outperform humans at nearly every cognitive level. Okay. Some people predict that it's going to come next year. Some people predict the median is around 2040. I think it's going to happen sooner than we realize. I think 2040 is pretty far out. I think it's definitely going to be more 2026, 27, 28. Now, a new term that people haven't always heard is artificial superintelligence. And I think it is important to understand what this is. This is when AI surpasses all human capabilities and it's self-learning. So imagine that something is smarter than humans, and then it could train at 100 times the rate because it doesn't go to sleep. It's just an algorithm that keeps, running faster and faster. Some of the predictions are early 2040s. The median is that it's going to be 2060s. Now, when that happens, things are going to dramatically change because AI is going to be producing stuff. It's going to be running stuff. I really don't know what to expect. It's sort of beyond our comprehension. All right. So what is GPT? Generative pre-trained transformer. So first of all, it's generating content based on input from the user, right? So it is, you give it some kind of input and it generates something back in its natural language. Now, the way the AI models, they're trained is on large data set, which is typically the public internet. Now, be aware that you can train it on your own data set. So at Let's Go Learn, we're going to launch next week our knowledge base. So we're going to have a GPT trained on our own knowledge base database about our system. So you eventually will do this at your schools. You can have it trained on your curriculum. You may have a certain way of doing something at a school district or in the state. So you can actually do the same thing. So while it learns to read and talk through the public internet, you can train it through some other databases. And that's important to know that. Now, the transformer is the natural language processing that it's using. So that is the whole model. OpenAI, ChatGPT is the one we hear about. That's the most, I think, widely used. And they have these different models, 3, 3.5, 4, 4 Omega, and 4.5 was just released. So that is allowing it to speak natural language, right? Now, there's different transformers. There's Claude, there's Grok, right? There's all these different ones out there as well. So be aware there can be different transformers. And in the future, school districts, you may have your own transformer. So we may end up having your own server. One of our engineers put their own transformer on a server at his house. So, things are speeding up so fast that this is interesting. So that's another thing to throw in there. All right, some basic AI terms. Natural language processing, right? So right now, it is not true intelligence. It's predictive. Hello, how are you? I'm doing fine. How are you doing? Right? It's what is statistically the most likely words that come out of your mouth. When you say hello to somebody, that's what they say. They respond. That's actually what AI is doing. But it's so much better than that. Obviously you can have full conversations, but it's still based on this predictive logic. Now, as a result of that, AI hallucinations are real. So when AI gets totally messed up and goes off the rails, now this is a part of the whole process because again, it's not truly intelligent. It's looking at these predictive next steps. And so this is something we have to realize that sometimes AI, when it doesn't have information, it'll make stuff up. So I'll give you an example. Like if I were to say, write an IEP for Richard, he's in 5th grade and he is struggling in math. It would write a beautiful IEP, but it would make up all the data because it doesn't have it. So we have to, again, it appears totally confident in its response. So that's why prompts are important, right? So prompts or prompt engineering is really, really important. Prompt engineering is really the science of how you develop prompts. So let's talk about that, the prompt. Why are prompts and guidelines important? There's really 3 reasons. One is data privacy, right? So we need to make sure as we work with AI, we have to protect our student data. Bias mitigation, we got to make sure that sometimes, AI, the internet has a bias. So if you just ask it to do something, that bias is reflected back in the data. So we have to make sure we mitigate that. And finally, transparency. How did it come up with that? So the prompts are going to allow us to address all 3 of these issues. And that's really important because we are teaching students. We're in the business of teaching students, and we're in the business of teaching students in special education. And so we have to be really, really careful. So that's where prompt engineering is really important. You can get a certificate in this. Now, I would advise you to, start getting a committee going, right? So next steps, if you don't already have this, one of the first steps is say, hey, I want to get an AI committee going, and we're going to be talking about prompts and start getting some guidelines for our schools. So that's something that's easy enough. You get some of the teachers who are eager about it, who are already using it. You probably have the expertise in your school districts already or your LEAs. So that is sort of a little bit about prompts, right? And another thing is, there's nothing wrong with getting some certifications. Get some of your teachers, your lead teachers, or whoever to get certified. Oh, sorry, the last one right there. Prompts are your guardrails, right? AI inherently will go off the rails, so you need to have guardrails. All right. All right. So initial steps to take tomorrow. I want you to walk away with some stuff like, hey, what do I do? We're not doing anything in our district. And I've definitely talked to a lot where they don't have any policies at all. So some of the 5 steps to get started, and then we have a really good tip sheet over there. You can scan that later. Is define how your organization can and cannot use AI. So you should go up there right off the bat and say, look, I don't want you to ask it to write an IP from scratch or present level. Yes, you could write it and then put it in there and have it proofread it. Yes, you can have it write a letter to a parent, proofread it. But, so you define some of that, right? Set up easy to find prompt guidelines and involving prompts. So set up an intranet, right? So part of that community is to put an intranet, and you start putting these when you request help on a lesson plan idea. Here's the prompt you should paste in first. When you request how to write a letter to the parent, this is what you need to consider. And that'll evolve over time. But you want to get these prompts in there because, again, even if you give guidelines on what you should use, sometimes people will go to different AI models, right? There's different ones we talked about. All right. Provide vetted resources for teachers to use. So this is important. Like I said, if you have those vetted resources already, you want to be able to go ahead and have those provided to your teachers. All right. So providing operational AI examples. So you need to spell it out for people, right? How exactly can they use it? How can they not use it? By role, paraprofessional, special education teacher. You want to make sure everyone knows what's proper use and what's not. All right. So, and I would also say set up trainings, start having a AI, Friday where people can call in, teachers can get onto a Zoom and support each other and how they can start using it. Because again, like I said, they're using it, but you want to make sure people are not going off the guardrails or not going outside of what you want. Now, the last thing here is this is a great one. So if you scan that tip sheet, we have these 5 things listed, but there's also additional resources like board documentation, policy documentation. So this was set up by one of our customers, and they actually, I think, pulled it from another site as well. But if you want to get this policies into your district, it's a great way to start without having to write everything from scratch. I mean, it really is amazing. The quality of the documentation is really, really fantastic. So that is a really good thing to do. Why reinvent the wheel when someone's already done it? Okay. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the framework to examine AI in special education. So this is sort of an important thing to think about, like how are we going to look at AI? And I've sort of brought it into some basic categories. So one is enhancement to personalized learning. So of course, the teacher can use it when they're working with students and they say, hey, I want to personalize this lesson for Richard. He really likes baseball. How do I, do a lesson on decimal operations? So it's a great brainstorming partner. So that goes without saying. That's really about being an aid to the teacher, helping them brainstorm on ideas. But this is really great. Another way is a massive improvement in IEP development and record keeping, right? And just developing those documents coming with it. That's where we come into play. Let's go learn, and I'm going to show some of that. But that's really a really good area as well. And the third one I bring up is QA of legal compliance. So this is a really easy thing to do too, is that you can say, look, I have all my documentation. Can I use it as not just a copy editor, but a compliance editor or a compliance reviewer? So those are some of the 3 broad areas where I think you get the most bang for your buck. And so that's one of the models that I've been trying to work with in those categories with our customers. And what they do is improve student outcomes, right? When you have better personalized learning, empowerment of teachers, right? And of course, improve retention. We don't want teachers to burn out. We want to reduce that burden. And then, of course, decrease litigation by having better compliance. So This is one way of looking at it. Now there's different models because obviously when you ask like how does AI help special education, there's like a list of 10 different things, but I like having it sort of narrowed down to this category. All right, so educational AI tool evolution. So this is the next thing I think is real important. And by the way, we're going to get to the demo pretty quickly. Yeah, let me look at my time. Okay, so first, wave one. These are prompt-based uh, AI tools, right? So this is what's been coming out over the past year. You see a lot of these. So lesson plan generators, writing assistants, test question generators, writing letters to parents. Now you could just use this with ChatGPT, but I sort of say some of the tools coming out, like some of you may have heard, like Magic School, School AI, they have pre-based prompts, right? So they already have the prompts in there. Use best practices, use your state standards, blah, 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 right? So that's great. But really, this is pretty simple. And also, where some of those wave one stuff is going to happen is eventually it got to be integrated into your school, right? So your school is going to have all your own prompts. This is really important because the way you want to do things is always going to be unique. You're going to operationalize it different than a generic term for your entire state or for the entire country. Okay. Now, wave two, this is where we're really focusing on. I don't know if it's wave two or level two, data aware AI, right? Dynamic and personalized learning. So what we're doing is using real student data to aid in IEP documentation. So we are sending de-identified data into AI. We're acting as the firewall, and then you get that data back. We're helping you save time, writing that PLAAFP, finding out what do I work on next. But this is the next wave is being able to safely share data with AI so that you can use it, right? Recommendations of what to teach next. Obviously, there's concerns, privacy, transparency, right? So those are two things. And you'll also have to trust that you've got those guardrails in place, right? So you have to have some trust in us that we're putting enough guardrails in place. And I know sometimes there's concerns about brand new teachers. Do they have the ability, if they don't have as much experience, to catch problems? So that's why it's really important. Now, wave three, I call this institutional legal compliance AI. I think this is where AI is moving. It's called agents or where agents actually go out and do things. So let's say you have all these IEPs uploaded into your system and your repository, and now you want an assistant to go through and check for compliance and make sure nothing has a problem. This is a great thing for AI, but it's where it has more autonomous and it goes in and looks. So if you are a district with 5,000 students with IEPs, you may have it go through and look at it. It's going to be connected to your case management system, right? And there's some predictive analytics as well. So this is another type of AI which has more autonomy, right? Now, right now in wave two, what we're doing is it's not going out on its own. You have to definitively use it or not use it. And I think that's a really conservative way to do this because we're just getting our feet wet with AI, right? I don't want my AI agent to have control of my computer and start writing emails for me if I don't trust it yet. So so you want to make sure you can turn it on or off. All right. So those are sort of the three progressions I see. Okay. All right. Last thing, just point. I think wave three, AI and a lot of that stuff, it's going to go get built into your SIS system. So if you're using Infinite Campus, Power School, or it be in your state repository system. And also, we're going to be building some of that stuff into our system as well. But I think it's going to go into some of those core systems more and more just because yeah, it makes sense, right, to do that. All right. All right. There we go. Okay. Common sense in AI evaluation. So I wanted to back up a little bit too. I know everyone's excited about AI and I'm extremely excited about it. My wife tells me I'm too excited about it and I need to stop talking about it. So, excuse me. But what is some common sense here, right? We have to have common sense. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. Now, being that we're a diagnostic assessment company, I've known this intimately because one of our biggest challenges is that so many assessment companies are summative, but they say they're diagnostic. So when I say garbage in, garbage out, um, I heard this notion like, oh, we're going to take all the data on the student, put it into AI, and it's going to tell us what to do and help the student and teach the student. Well, That is called garbage in, garbage out. Because if the data you have on the student is not good data, it's just summative data saying Richard is low in reading, Richard is below grade level in math, or, he struggles in fractions. That doesn't tell you why, right? So if I just give AI surface level data, it's not going to give me good stuff. So we have to have common sense. So when you evaluate AI, you've got to think about it. Now, the other thing is, AI isn't going to be better than a human in many tasks. So if my reading specialist or my special education lead teacher or my math specialist can't figure it out, AI is not going to be able to figure it out, right? So we got to remember that too. So I'll give you an example. I heard about, there's some AI that's supposed to be able to diagnose students by their voices in reading. And I thought, wow, this I something I had deja vu. Well, that's what No Child Left Behind did with Dibbles, right? They would force every student to take Dibbles, which is a fluency test, and they were trying to say that's the one test to diagnose them. That we know as special educators that there are kids who cannot read out loud fluently, but they are good readers, right? So if we are going to be driving something and think that AI is magically going to do something, it's not, right? So we have to keep that in mind. Again, common sense, right? Hey, maybe if the problem was I had, 1,000 new students coming into my school and I could not sit down and assess them and I needed a quick and dirty way to screen them through their voice, yes, maybe an AI voice diagnosis would be good. But it's not going to be a true diagnosis. There's going to be errors in it, right? Because we know that from No Child Left Behind and relying only on Dibbles. All right, sorry, just need to get that out there. All right. The other thing is, yes, if it's a large data set, AI is going to do a great job. If I suddenly have so much data, let's say it was a student came to my school and there was, 25 pages of data and I needed to quickly find out what's going on. Yeah, in that case, yeah, you could use AI to sift through it and look at it. But again, we have to use our common sense when we evaluate AI. All right. All right, I'm sorry. Sometimes my slides are not advancing. There we go. Okay, now to the good stuff. So let me go ahead and show you the system. So I am now logged into the Let's Go Learn system. This is a real student data, but the names have all been obfuscated. So so those of you who don't know about Let's Go Learn, so the students have taken a diagnostic assessment, and now what I'm doing is I'm looking at this data, right? So this is the reading data, high frequency words, word recognition, phonics, phonemic awareness, spelling, vocabulary, comprehension. So the difference with us is we're giving you really precise data to start with. And I think this is absolutely essential for what we're doing. I think if we push summative data into AI, then you can only get summative results, right? You cannot get better. So this is present level data. So looking at the high frequency words, we see some students have a 3.83. That's a grade level score. They've maximized high frequency words. Some students at the very beginning. We see different scores in phonics, right? We see all this different stuff. So let's say I wanted to look at my class in phonics. I can go ahead and look at the class and say, hey, these students here are working on beginning consonants. These three students are working on consonant blends, and these two students are working on long vowel. Our assessment has definitively determined this by going up and down, regardless of grade level, to determine mastery and non-mastery of adjacent skills, all right? This is a lot more necessary when you look at mathematics, because mathematics is a lot more skills-based than concept-based. So here in mathematics, we see a class, the total score 1.83, so high first grade. We see numbers and operations, measurements, data analysis, geometry, and algebra. Again, these are strand scores, so this is not enough to determine present levels. I can go over to numbers and operations, and then I can see, what is numbers and operations? Specifically, it's numbers, place value, ordering and comparing, addition of whole numbers. And again, I see the students in that scope and sequence, right? So if I wanted to look at place value, and I'm just doing this right now just to establish the level of data, right? And then you can see what the results we get. So if I look at place value in my class, these three students have mastered place value. These five students are at the very beginning learning 1 and 2 digit place value. And this one, Xavier, is working on decimal place value. So that's what he needs to learn next, right? So again, we have this level of data. It's really important. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to our AI assistant. Okay. Now this name is going to change. I think we're going to call it the IEP assistant or something like that. Um, but anyway, so here it is. Now, oops, let me do something. Okay, reload that. I'm go ahead and tell it to send Dora, which is our reading assessment, and Adam with our math assessment. And I'm going to tell it to go ahead and I'll select a student here. All right, please write a PLAAFP for math and reading in paragraph format. Hit submit. So this is just me writing a real quick, I don't have any fine tuning happening for your district. So the next thing we're doing is we actually have some beta customers where we are actually adding an extra layer to fine tune it for your specific format. So right here, and we can see based on the Dora and math assessment, Ricardo is currently performing at various levels in reading and mathematics, and it goes into detail. I've done this probably 100 times, and the data is actually very accurate. It's using the scores, is looking at it and reading here. It actually talks about the phonics level and everything. So it's really, really accurate, but that's because I push data into it. And if I look at this debug button right here, this is what was sent into ChatGPT. Just the first name of the student. That's all it knows. Doesn't know me, the teacher. It doesn't know what school. So all of this is from the whole entire United States or even world, and it gets some data, and it's just giving the scores in here. Here's the reading scores, and then all the different math scores. Now the difference is these are present levels, right? So within each one, we determine the present level point within the scope and sequence. These are the subtests, and that's just has to do with the design of our assessment, which is a present level assessment. All right. Now, look what else I could do. From here, I could say, well, what are the next 10 skills I should work on in numbers and operations? So I'm now asking it to mine the data and tell me what I should do. Now, I'll show you later, but we have a report that you can do this manually. And this is a lot of our customers do this manually. Um, okay. Oops. All right, it actually had an error there. All right, so I'll have to try that again in a second. But anyway, yeah, normally it should work. But again, hey, this is still beta. So I will show you, actually, I did it before. Let me grab my previous one here real quickly. All right, so here's a previous one. I did this just earlier today. And when I asked it, what are the next 10 skills I should teach in numbers and operations, it actually literally spit out all these scores right here. And I think I did this for the same student. Yes. Okay, now if I go ahead, it grabbed that data for me. I can hit edit, and now I see the data right here. Okay. Fractions, division, multiplication, and sometimes the formatting, like I said, the formatting is a little off. So I can go ahead and take this. I could save this as well as if I wanted. So one of the things we realized is that a lot of teachers just need some extra tools. Like how do I save these working documents? So I could say, okay, these are short-term objectives, and this is an AI first draft. And I'll just give this a name, Cardo, num, and op. Next steps. All right, I could save that. So now I have that saved. So I'll show you real quickly, if I went over here to the math data and I went over to Ricardo, this is how our customers are doing it today. They would go over to the special ed report and they would say, okay, he's in sixth grade. I'm going to work on numbers and operations because I know that's probably one of the most important strands. So then they would say, okay, here's the present levels. Ricardo can correctly round 10, hundreds, thousands. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the skills. What are the next ones I need to work on? And this is where I would normally have to come in here and grab all the low ones, right? So I'd grab maybe multiplying single digits by 10, whole number, division, blah, 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 and then maybe these fraction skills. So this is exactly what it was showing you when I asked it, give it the next 10 skills. So I normally would have to go through here and we train the teacher to grab the lowest ones. But what AI is doing, it's allowing us to mine this data and just do it automatically, right? So which is a pretty incredible thing. So the next thing to do, and let me try this again. Let's do, I'm going to go ahead, just send in some math data. And I'm not sure why this didn't work. So what are the, all right, hopefully it'll work. All right, so now what I wanted to show you is that once we sort of get this level of communicating sort of a natural language back and forth, I could then also start using it for SMART goal. So normally the way I would do it is I would say, okay, so here's some different smart skills I need to teach in the same subtest. So multiplication, 2-digit by 1-digit, without no regrouping, with regrouping, and then I'm doing some divisions, some fractions. So I'd say, okay, give me SMART goals for 2, 4, 5, and 8. All right, because those are the last skill in a series of skills within the same subtest that I want to do. So that's something I could go ahead and do. But here's where I think the real strength is, and we're working with some customers on this, is you are going to give us 20 examples of your SMART goals. You're going to give us 20 examples of your PLAAFs, and then we're going to make sure it conforms to that. So here it is. So it writes it out, specifically, Ricardo will accurately multiply 2-digit by 1-digit numbers that require regrouping, right? It's starting to write this out. Now, it just sort of grabbed a random SMART goal format. But if we had an example, it would follow that example and write it into that format, right? So that's going to be the second layer of AI assistance. Okay, so that's sort of it in a nutshell. The one other thing I want to show you is just the idea of vectorizing your own data set. So this is our knowledge base. So we actually took our knowledge base database and we brought it into ChatGPT, the developer's version, and we vectorized it and it syncs with it. So I can now ask it any question like, how long does Dora take? Right? But this is an example because this is something you could use even internally, right? This is a really easy thing to do. And then it basically spits it out, right? All in natural language. So you can keep having a conversation, or if you want to drill down more into some nuanced materials, this is the wave of the future. You guys will have your own assistants for your school districts. I see it because it makes so much sense for us to do it. In our system, we're going to be adding different AI assistants. Some will be experts where we push data in. Some will just be knowledge-based assistants like this one where you just ask it basic questions. Okay, so we have a lot of questions that have come up. And also we are lucky because today we have 2 of our engineers who've agreed to come on. And let me see here. Let me do a couple questions. Actually, I have 2 slides and then we're going to jump into the Q&A. Actually, I apologize. Let's see here. We have plenty of time. Okay. So first of all, what we sort of showed you was the AI assistant that can write a first draft PLAAF from student data, right? And then we are acting as the firewall between the LEA and AI. So we store all those threads so a supervisor can go back and see exactly what transpired. We're not asking ChatGPT to store it. Now, sometimes you may want it. Some people do have AI implementations where they're giving it all and the AI stores all. We're not doing that, right? We're also asking it to interpret IET reports for teachers in natural language. And so that's where we're going, all right? It can identify what to teach next. And then we're going to do is allow fine tuning with the LEA, right? So you guys will be able to allow us a fine tuning. We work with you. We're prepared to do this at a client level. I think it's important because, again, you have to operationalize it, right? All right. And again, that's the SMART goals, formatted PLAFs. Absolutely. Like we have one district who said their PLAFs have to be based on per subject. And you have to say, what is the assessment you used? What's the results and what's the effect, right? That was the format of their PLAFs, and they wanted exactly like that. Okay, so this is all going to lead to a massive cost savings. I mean, There is so much cost you could save because of time, but also other tools. We're going to see a consolidation of tools as well because uh, a lot of stuff, some of the stuff is going to go away, right? If people can do it more easily with AI, then it's going to be passed on to you, right? Like I said, redundant tools are going to go away. Okay, so let me go ahead and go to the next slide here. I think I have one more slide. Okay. All right, so what's next in AI? I mentioned it multiple times. AI assistants and agents are expanding and becoming ubiquitous. So the term is sort of used back and forth, and I think in the AI world, the assistant agents are there's actually a definition for it, but I know when people talk in real world, they're interchanging them as synonyms. But the idea is agents are probably more sophisticated, meaning they go out and do things for you. So you give it agency and it runs. So in theory, an agent could write emails for you and send it for you, right? Where an assistant is more like supposed to be helping you do something like, hey, please look at this data and pick out the next skills I should work on, right? So we're doing it is we're defining those as assistants, and then experts are when we it actually gets student data. So we're going to be changing some of our own terminology, but that's going to be changing. Again, agents act autonomously. Assistants are trained by each LEA. All right. The other thing that's interesting I want to mention is MCP is Model Context Protocol. This is something that's really interesting. This was just adopted probably like a month or 2 months ago, and it actually came out a little earlier, but everyone's sort of jumping on saying we're going to accept MCP. This is going to allow agents to talk to agents or assistants to talk to assistants. So this means at your school district, if you have your own, this is the Washington Elementary um, Substantive Compliance Review Agent. So you have an agent that reviews your IEPs the way you want it to. That might be your agent. So eventually, we're going to connect to your agent and you maintain that. You use it however you want. And then we're going to have much better results, right? I think initially we're going to be creating an agent for each of our customers, but when you're ready, we're using the MCP standard. We'll just redirect it. Not a problem. Google has something similar. A to A, agent to agent, is another connection framework. Uh, Although it's supposed to be sort of more on top of MCP, where this is more of a developer's version, this is a little bit more of a end user version, right? If I'm understanding it correctly. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and open it up to Q&A. I think there's a lot of questions here. And also Ryan and Anthony, if you guys want to jump on, these are two of our lead engineers who are brilliant. And I don't know if you guys are on, just turn on your camera and you can be up here too. So let's see here. All right, some questions. How can we mitigate concerns about personal student data when using AI for special education? Are there some guidelines for that educators can use to know some do's and don'ts? How do we know what data is being stored or not stored? Okay, so this is a great question, and this is from Jason. So first of all, in theory, most of the AI systems, they have a privacy policy, so they're not supposed to be storing it. And when you have a paid account, you can define how you're using it. So that's why, in some ways, you want to tell your school employees you have to use ChatGPT and you have to register for an account, right? Or something like that. Because when you register, not use a free account, there is more additional privacy rules, right? If you just tell them go out and use it, then you're right. There isn't a lot of protection. So I think that's something you need to do. Um, Now in our system, we're sending it anonymously. We're just saying the first name. They don't know who you are, what school, and we're not storing long-term threads. The long-term data that I showed you when you click on the back, that's in our database. We already have a privacy agreement with you guys. All right. Okay, here's another one. Are you allowed to say this? This is a funny one. From Helene. How is Let's Go Learn compared to iReady data reports? What is your cost? Well, I'll just answer that quickly. Obviously, I'm biased. I think our data is a lot more granular. iReady, they're really chasing the broad general ed market, so they're about summative data. They're not a diagnostic model like us. We diagnose present levels, where they're diagnosing more of a summative level, right? So I think their scores are like 576. Okay, well, that is a summative level score where we're at, no, Richard is in multiplication of a whole number. He's at 1.2, which corresponds to single digit multiplication, right? So that is the difference. And you guys could scan that QR code there and we could talk to about price. All right. So let me see. All right, so here's another question. Once the scores and other data are entered onto the Let's Go Learn system, will it generate a PLAAFP for academics? So we have the scores in our system and it will generate a PLAAFP as I showed you. However, the thing is we do need to fine tune it to allow it to be in the format you need, right? Because if we just say write a PLAAFP, every single time you type write a PLAAFP, it actually changes a little bit. So that's where the fine tuning needs to come into play. All right, can you explain a little bit more about MCP? Ryan and Anthony, why don't I let you guys explain this a little bit? I sort of explained it, but I probably didn't explain it well enough. That's why this person asked the question. You want to do that, Ryan?
Sure. So MCP basically is just a protocol used for different agents to talk to each other. So when you ask a AI a question or something, it can interact with different tools in the background, which are like MCP servers usually. So it gives the thread or the chat context. So it's basically just the protocol that helps it interact with helps everything interact with each other.
But you show me that you could direct it to ChatGPT or Claude or any
Yeah.
different model, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty universal. It doesn't necessarily have to go to any certain provider. It can be used with any AI provider.
Yeah, it can work with any AI provider, any AI model. It's more of a developer tool, though, from our perspective, than it would be for anyone that's on this call that they would use specifically for themselves. In the IT world, it's sort of like an API that interfaces with the database or website, and MCP will interface between something that we're developing and an AI model or an AI provider like Anthropic or Google Gemini or ChatGPT. So,
But if a school had to really, like, say, they say, look, from a privacy standpoint, we've determined that the best one to use is Anthropic, right? They can say, I want to use Anthropic, and we can, in theory, through the MCP protocol, we can direct it to use the Anthropic engine. Or
Yeah.
if they had their own, right? Some IT departments are very advanced, and maybe they have their own server with their own model.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
We'll be able to support multiple different providers in the future. Right now, it's we're more focused on OpenAI provider right now. So, but in the future, we'll support all of them or most of them anyway. Most of the bigger ones.
Yeah, and AI has been evolving for the last couple of years, and it's just started to really kick in full throttle. MCPs were developed in November, I think, of 2024 by Anthropic, but everyone's starting to adopt it, like OpenAI and Google. But like Ryan said, we're sticking with OpenAI for now. It was one of the first to spearhead the whole AI revolution. But down the road with companies like Anthropic, who uses Claude, Google, they use Gemini. It's constantly evolving and getting smarter, like Richard said during his presentation. So it's limitless the direction that we can go in, and the direction that you all can ride with us along.
All right. Great. Thank you, guys. So there's some more questions. I want to get through them. Some of them looks like they were typed in early, and I know I answered, so I'm going to skip some of those. Here's one. So we need to use a Let's Go Learn assessments to write goals for the system. How do we connect to state standards for writing standards-based IEPs, adapt to local curriculum for inclusion purposes, or identify strengths for strength-based IEPs? So that's going to happen through the second level of fine-tuning. So yes, we're initially trying to, our assessments, we think in many ways are breaking the standards apart, because obviously if you're at a certain grade level standards, you have to break it apart. Like for instance, if the standard is talking about volume, we're going to look at, well, do you know how to do multiplication? Do you understand the concept of volume? Do you understand shapes, right? So we're going to look at all those things. So what you would do is sometimes reflect that back. to the grade level and say, hey, looking at the grade level standard. Now we do store the grade level standard that each of the goals are associated with. So, and as well as their instructional standard. So that would be some additional fine tuning. And I think some of that, might be a little more complicated, but that's where we have to work together to operationalize it to make sure that it's in the format you need. So that's a great question. Now, the question are standards based on Common Core. So we're working not just with Common Core, we work with TEKS, we work with all different state standards. And so we have an alignment. And when we do alignment, again, we're not just aligning at the grade level and saying you're below. We actually break the standards apart and we try to find out where that granular level is. Okay, so when and how often is it recommended to administer the Let's Go Learn assessment for quarterly progress monitoring before annual IEPs during evaluation as standalone? So we recommend that usually most customers are doing it 3 times a year. So you're doing it at the very beginning, but throughout the year, you're going to be doing quizzes. And our quiz system, if you give a quiz on long vowel and they pass it, if you give a quiz on 2-digit by 1-digit multiplication, they pass, that data lays on top of the baseline data. So for instance, in the case of phonics, they pass long vowel, they move up a notch. That phonics score goes up, the total score is recalculated. So as you give quizzes, we store snapshots and we progressively move your score. So we allow progress monitoring pre-post by just giving a quiz. Now that's only possible because we're a diagnostic model. You can't do that with summative assessments like MAP or iReady or Edmentum or Renaissance. So that's really something that's unique to us because we're a diagnostic model that actually finds present levels. So as a result of that, you don't have to do, if everyone's consistently doing quizzes, you don't have to do full assessments. Some people may say, we're not going to do a full assessment middle of the year, but it's really up to you. Yeah, so that's gonna vary. All right. So one of the questions is, how is this distinct from what ChatGPT can do? Well, the difference is that we do have an external agent in ChatGPT called the LGL Report Expert. And you can drag our summary reports into ChatGPT and get very similar results. The difference is that you have to make sure your teachers de-identify those reports, right? When we allow you to save it de-identified, and then they have to save it to their hard drive, and then they have to drag it into ChatGPT and they have to have a paid account. So it's just meant to be more seamless because you could just click a button and you saw how the data just flows in. So that's how it works. Okay. Wow, a lot of questions. So one of the things is hearing the okay, I don't want to get too political. How do we ensure that the safety of student data? So in our system, we already have a privacy agreement with the LEAs. We are not pushing, the only name, the data we put is the first name of the student. And then they have no way of knowing it's from you, what district, what state. It could be anywhere in the world. And we have thousands of users, right? So it becomes a sort of a data point lost in the sea. Also, we're not having them store it. So we're not asking ChatGPT to store anything long term. So it's just like, hey, here's some scores, give it back to me. Now, there's some negatives to that. A lot of times people, like when I talk to my own ChatGPT account, it knows me and it knows that I asked questions earlier. So it'll come back. But we're not doing that yet because I just think it's also all these questions about privacy. People are probably worried about it, right? Okay. All right. I'm trying to look for some technical questions for you guys too. All right. Is this available to individual teachers, individual schools, or individual districts? And at what level can you opt in? So absolutely. People use our system normally and they don't have any of this, right? So we're going to allow it to be opt-in. Now, the only one I'd say is turn on automatically would be the knowledge base AI assistant. That's just a better search engine. So we'll allow this, but people are going to have to ask for it. And then obviously for us to do fine tuning, we're going to have to work with you on that. All right. So that's a great question. So is the Let's Go Learn, is this only about for IEP special education, or is this focused broader in the school system? Yes, absolutely. We have entire schools using us. I always like saying that diagnostic data can be summative, but summative data cannot be diagnostic. So yeah, we have some schools, we can do growth measure. We're aligned to state standards. We can predict how well you're going to do on your state standards test. So we could be used for all of that. And I think the customers who really see some advantages when they give one assessment, our assessment, and the general ed just uses the total score. The intervention uses it for guiding intervention. The special education teacher uses it for writing reports, and they're going to be using the AI assistant. I think we eventually will have some more stuff like maybe if a teacher needs help in analyzing a reading report, we'll allow them to do that. So that's where it can help maybe the general ed teacher who doesn't have as much knowledge about reading, or maybe a high school teacher who doesn't know what the reading scores mean. So that's a good example too. Okay. All right, some more questions. What would you recommend for someone looking to getting a certified as a prompt engineer specifically to support education? Do you guys have any input on that on prompt engineering certifications? Have you heard of what the best places to get that? Maybe we have to ask ChatGPT that.
Yeah, I've not. No, haven't looked into that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would ask. I know. uh, Actually, honestly, I'm not sure what the latest ones are. There's a bunch. I know there's some like Amazon had something like that. I know there's some other organizations that did some prompt engineering certifications. So we'll have to get back to you on that one. I apologize not knowing the answer. So one of the questions is there ability to personalize your assessments to specific needs, or are they more standardized? So our core assessments, Dora and Adam, are meant to go in there and figure out the students' ups and downs or peaks and valleys. So that's sort of the reason why it's been so nice is that if you have a lot of students and you need an adaptive assessment that works with students with IEPs, that's our system. But you can definitely, once you've got that baseline data, you can give whatever quizzes you want. And we're not based necessarily on standards because we're trying to break the standards up. So it's about what is a skill and concept you could test that. Does the student know Pythagorean theorem? Do they know types of triangles? Do they know angles? So you can test all of those pieces that make up the triangle subtest, for instance. So that's the way it works. All right.
Richard, there was a question if we're a Chicago public school vendor, and also if their school is 4K through 12, can this be used with 4K? Thought you might be able to best answer that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, we are in some Chicago public schools, and I know they had that crazy RFP a few years ago, and then we did get onto that technology one. So I think we do have some individual schools. I know Chicago public schools are very decentralized, so yeah, you can definitely use us. I mean, we're used for K-12 um, students, absolutely. Now, I don't know if you said 4K or for that like pre-K. For pre-K students, we do have a few different tests that can be used, but really it's about when they start becoming readers. But we do have stuff like dyslexia screener, which is early literacy, so it's letter recognition. Do they know their beginning sight words? So there are some really, really early skills like that we do cover. Yeah, great question. All right, I know we only have a little bit more time. Looks like, okay, if you have any other questions, go ahead and enter them in there. Okay, so here's another one. Would these AI tools fit into current web-based services that we use for IEPs, such as SICE, SEIS, or would we be using a new web-based service? So I think if I understand that correctly, there's a lot of repositories that you're using to sort of store your IEPs. And we're sort of see ourselves as the piece before when you're working on it, right? So that's why we have those working documents you could save. Now, there was a status like it said, what is the status of the document? It was like AI first draft, teacher, review, finalized. I would love to in the future, once you hit finalized, you can hit upload and have it go into what other kind of repo systems you have. Anthony is our DBA. He's an expert in data transfer and he knows how to connect all these different kind of systems. So that is something we would think about in the future. Now, we may not be able to do it for every single small customer, but maybe larger districts. If they say, hey, look, I really need to work with, this one system in our state. can we do that? So we'd love to do that kind of stuff, because if we can create some efficiencies to save your teachers time, we want to do it. So that's a good question. Okay, I think
Richard, there is a question in the chat. It says, does Let's Go Learn work with college faculty who are training pre-service special educators around IEP writing and development?
wow, that's a great question. Absolutely. I think we even went to one of the TED sessions, the teacher education division within CEC. But absolutely, if you're a university pre-service teacher, send us an email. We set you up with a free account. You basically get support, training. You could use it for field work, to have your teachers test kids in the field, or just to do it, test their own kids, or, and use it sort of to learn about assessment. But we also give you a pre-populated account. That count I showed you, we have an account that we refresh a few times a year. And so you have real data to examine. So it's a fabulous program. We just started about a year and a half ago. Dr. Jennifer Sears, from Northern Georgia University, she's been using it, and I think she was at TED, did a session on it. So just scan that document there, say you want an account to use, and then we'll set you up with a free account. Any other questions, Brooke?
I copied all of them in from the chat. There were so many great questions. Let me see and tried to track the ones that you answered.
I know some of them I realized they typed in before I covered it, and so
Yeah.
I skipped some.
Yeah, right. It says, does it support languages other than English?
We have Spanish, so we do native Spanish assessment, diagnostic assessment, and obviously Spanish is a little different than English. It's phonetically regular, so we do have that. And then also our math assessment, we consider localization. It has Spanish as well, so you can do it in Spanish. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we'll also give you the slides.
Yep.
And I think because that one QR code that has all those reference documents is really good for you to get all that documentation. This is the one if you want to contact us, and we'd love to have a conversation. I think this is exciting. Our goal is to really help you operationalize it so that you can do it in a safe, responsible way. I think that's it. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Anthony and Ryan, for joining us.
Yeah. I don't see additional questions. If we missed yours, thank you for your questions. Richard's email on the screen has a little typo in it. There is a G in Let's Go Learn. I put it in the chat for you so you can scroll up and find it.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
to
Oh my
our,
God. I
our
typed my own
attendee who
email address
noticed
wrong.
that. Yeah, but I put Richard's email in the chat so you can scroll up and find that, but it is rcapone@letsgolearn.com. That is going to conclude our webinar. I'm going to stop the recording now and just have a couple more things for you, so stick with us just another minute.